Ask yourself the damn question. Is winning the only thing to you?
Sports today are not just played on the field. They're played every day, online, all over the world, by sports fans just like you.
Don't you dare breathe. That won't get you anywhere. If you don't think you're a winner, you don't belong here.
The Star Fantasy League Show puts you in control of your own team. Find out who to sit, who to start, how to play, and have your daily fantasy sports questions answered with your host, Jonathan Sprung, and co-host SFL CEO Zach Stanley and Nick Steblenko. The Star Fantasy League Show is on the air now.
Hello, Radio Universe, and welcome to the Star Fantasy League Show here on 105.5 The Team. I'm your host, filling in this week for Jonathan Sprung. I am Matthew Footer, and joined on my immediate right all week, as he has been, Mr. Jason Gringer.
Yeah, today's the end of our reign.
It is. We made it through the whole week without being fired. Well, for what we know, in my case, I probably still am because that is the running joke here.
Yeah,
I think it's a joke at least.
When they get back from Vegas, they might just can us both for our awful baseball postseason predictions so far.
Yes, as we did mention yesterday, any game that we do predict on here, take the exact opposite, as
yes.
we are pretty much right on pace with that right now. We are 4-0, I believe. If we
pretty much, if you weren't listening on Wednesday. We're just missed them all.
Yep.
If you're listening on Monday, you might think that I had the Giants right, but
yeah, you would be completely wrong because you did go back on that.
I did switch.
Yeah. So speaking of baseball, we're going to get in and talk about a couple of the series going on. Obviously, there's a few series that went on earlier today. We're not really going to kind of get into discussing them. We want to kind of preview one of the games last night and then one of the future series happening later, starting tonight. First, we're going to start with the Kansas City LA Angels game from last night. Kansas City ended up winning 3-2 in the 11th. Now, we did talk about that the Royals were hot yesterday coming off that, and we thought they might end up winning that game.
Yeah.
But we did say that LA was going to win the whole series. So I don't know if we can take the full loss for that one.
Yeah, I don't know. We did say that the Royals looked like they might have some postseason magic. Mm-hmm. The 29 years since they've been in the postseason. Mm-hmm. It's also the last time a team has played in consecutive extra inning games to start the postseason was 1979 with Cincy and Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So that's pretty rare.
Yep.
Mike Moustakas had the first extra innings postseason home run in Royals history.
That's kind of surprising to me, knowing guys like that. They had George Brett there and other guys like that, not in just any postseason game that are extra innings. So
yeah, but it was also his first home run since August 25th. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. They were kind of waiting for him to break out in that other game. He really wasn't doing much in the playing game. So
yeah, both teams combined only had 8 hits, 4 hits apiece. So not many hits to go around. Trout, Pujols, Kendrick, and Hamilton all went 0 for 18 combined.
Yeah, I did say yesterday Hamilton's not the best in the playoffs, and he went 0 for 5 yesterday. So
yeah, he looked pretty awful at the plate. The Royals did use 8 pitchers total, which was a lot of guys, knowing they just came off the play-in game, the first game of the series. So that could come into play here as the series goes along.
Definitely.
3 home runs out of those 8 hits. So there's a few solo home runs. Kind of surprising it was that low scoring of a game. But game 2 tonight, Shoemaker and Ventura, matchup of 2 rookies. Shoemaker's pitching for the first time since September 15th. Mm-hmm. He's been out with an oblique strain. He had an amazing rookie season, went 16-4 with a 3.04 ERA. Mm-hmm. Really, his only bad outing was against the Royals. He allowed 8 earned runs, 11 hits, only 2 strikeouts on June 27th. But since then, he's gone 11-2 with a 2.09 ERA.
Okay. It's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. That game is slated for a 9:30 start. The other game that we're going to we're going to kind of talk about is the other LA team, the Dodgers, taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. That game is scheduled for a 6:30 start, so right after the show's ending, we'll be getting that game underway. Matchup of 2 powerhouse pitchers in Wainwright versus Kershaw. What do you expect out of this series?
This should be a pretty interesting series. I know the Cardinals knocked the Dodgers out last year. Mm-hmm. They actually knocked around Kershaw pretty good in both those starts in the championship series. In Game 6 of the NLCS, the Cardinals won 9-0 against Kershaw. They beat him twice in that series, so that's got to give them some confidence going in. But Kershaw will definitely be out for some revenge tonight. Other side of the mound, Adam Wainwright was third in the NL in ERA, but even better on the road. He had a 172 area on the road. However, in his career at Chavez Ravine, he's only gone 1-3 with a 4.30 ERA in seven games. So
Interesting.
This might be a very low-scoring game tonight, but who knows? It's postseason baseball. It could just flip-flop, and we thought the A's-Royals playing game would be kind of low-scoring.
Yeah,
with Lester and,
if you look at what happened this afternoon, the amount of runs that were being scored in the Tigers-Orioles game were kind of going back and forth there. So, even with stud pitchers on the mound, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a low-scoring game in postseason baseball.
Yep.
Obviously, the Cardinals have made 4 World Series appearances in the last 10 years. I said before we started the postseason, I do like the Cardinals to actually win the World Series this year, so I'm taking them in the series, and I believe you took the Dodgers?
I did take the Dodgers in this series.
Okay, are you going to stick to it?
I'm sticking with the Dodgers.
Okay, you're not going to go back. So we're actually differed on one, so one of us has to be right, I think. I think that's how it works out.
I don't think they can tie.
No, I don't think so. So it'll be interesting to see how those series break down. I'm sure the guys who come back next week will probably be talking more about postseason baseball. But we're going to move on now and talk a little bit about the Thursday night football. I guess you could call it a game/fest beatdown. I don't know exactly what to call it. It was pretty much over within the first quarter. I think it was 14-0. Then it was 21-0 by like second quarter. It was done after that. So
yeah, rough one for the Vikings. We kind of thought that would happen with Christian Ponder being in there. He looked pretty awful. The whole Vikings team really looked bad. Packers have now won 8 straight games in the month of October, which is the longest active streak by any NFL team in a calendar month. Eddie Lacy really showed up. We thought that this might be his breakout game, and we were definitely right. He averaged, 8 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I think he only had 13 carries, which kind of was surprising.
Yeah, he started the game with a couple short runs, didn't really do anything. Next series that he had a couple runs, he busted, I think it was 29 or 30 yards on 2 runs. And at that point he ended up with more yards than he had at any game at that point in the season in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think he had 3 carries for 53 yards in that drive. I saw he had 78 yards rushing before contact, and he only had 80 total in his first 4 games combined. So the Packers line was really opening up some gaps.
There were some huge holes last night.
And once he hit the kind of the second level there, he was just bowling over guys, which is the Eddie Lacy we saw last year, just kind of knocking over guys. He had 2 touchdowns. The second touchdown was the second touchdown where he kind of went to the left, and then he bounced it all the way back and went around the outside, which was a very nice run.
Is it the one where he ran over the guy?
No.
That was the first one. The second one, he got kind of stuffed at the 2, and he just kind of powered the guy backwards. And you saw Mike McCarthy on the sideline, and he's not a guy who smiles much for a head coach, and he was hooting and hollering he loved that run by Eddie Lacy there.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers had his 200th touchdown pass in his 99th game. Only Dan Marino did that faster. He did it in 89 games.
Yep.
So the Packers offense looked great. Cobb has 6 touchdowns now receiving, which is the most in the NFL. Nelson had that deep one.
For his only catch, but he made it count. So
yeah, if you got him in fantasy, you're happy with that, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of leagues, he was around 15 to 17 points, depending on how much you got, yardage-wise, points-wise, catch-wise. So
yeah, I did see an interesting stat. Only Deshaun Jackson, who is 13, has more 60-plus yard receptions than Jordy Nelson since 2008.
Interesting.
That was very interesting to me because you don't really think of Nelson as that guy that'll break off these huge.
No, you think of him, he's a bigger guy. You think he's more of a possession guy, kind of like a Calvin Johnson type mold. He goes up and gets the ball, can kind of create that separation and be able to, bring down anything that's thrown up his way. So
yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that. If you look at the Minnesota offense, Christian Ponder on throws of 6+ yards was 1 of 4 for 7 yards and 2 interceptions. So they're definitely looking forward to getting Bridgewater back. Hopefully to turn that offense around. Asiata had 15 carries, 72 yards. McKinnon surprisingly only had 7 carries.
Yeah, that was he had 3 catches, so he had 10 total touches. I was very surprised, they didn't have anything really going offensive-wise. I mean, Ponder still threw for 222 yards, but between Cordero Patterson and Greg Jennings had 40 yards combined total receiving. I know Patterson got hurt late in the game, didn't come back, but between your top 2 guys only have 40 receiving yards, and your quarterback throws for 220. Who's he throwing the ball to?
I think Ellison had a lot of catches.
Yeah.
It seemed like you kind of see that with the backup quarterback, the check down tight end there. Yeah, Patterson's really had a disappointing season so far. He went out with a hip injury after his catch there in the third.
Mm-hmm. Except for that first game where I just don't feel like they're utilizing him right. You know, he had that great run against St. Louis week 1 where he ended up getting the rushing touchdown. I mean, he can return the ball. He's a great returner, and he can make, nice catches. I just don't think – first of all, he's not having QB stability, which kind of hinders his play. But I just don't think they're calling the right plays for him. I feel like he's a guy you should be getting the ball to. He reminds me a lot of like Percy Harvin. You need to get him, the screen passes, end arounds, anything like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Norv Turner hasn't really found a way to get him more involved in the offense. He's he's obviously their most dynamic player on the team. So that's definitely been a surprise. Julius Pepper had a nice interception return.
He did. He is the first player in NFL history to have 100 sacks and 10 interceptions, which I thought was a pretty impressive stat.
I saw that. Packers defense actually looked good for once.
Yeah, I almost called them yesterday as a team to think about picking up and playing. I think I ranked them just outside my top 10. But there was somebody I was pondering picking up this week. I ended up using Pittsburgh in a lot of my leagues, obviously. But once I knew the conditions were going to be terrible, you knew Ponder wasn't going to get the ball to anyone.
Yeah, you were pondering using them against Ponder.
Oh, right. Who's sitting over there? Seth Young? Is that Seth Young over there?
No.
All right. That's pretty much, I think, the whole wrap-up for the Thursday night game. There really wasn't much happening. Again, yesterday we previewed all the games coming up this weekend. There are only 2 teams on bye, so there should be a lot of guys available fantasy-wise. We'll kind of get into a breakdown of who our big guys are later on in our show. We have been talking a little hockey this week. The last 2 days we did do the Eastern Conference. Today we're going to do both divisions of the Western Conference. We're going to start with the Central, and we're going to start with the team that actually won the Central last year, and that was the Colorado Avalanche. Very surprising, and I think is the word or 2 words that I can use to describe the Colorado Avalanche 2013-14 season.
Yeah, definitely. They came on pretty hard there. Patrick Raw, his first season behind the bench, he really turned them around. They had a great offense. Obviously, they have a lot of young talent on that team. Semyon Varlamov, Vezina finalist.
Yep.
He had a great season. They added some nice pieces in the offseason. Briere, Iginla, Brad Stewart. They still have Duchesne, Landeskog. Nathan McKinnon won the Calder.
Yep.
So he had 24 goals, 63 points last year. He does move back to the center role this year. They lost Paul Stastny.
Yep.
So that should be interesting to see. Should be a decent team.
Yeah, definitely. They lost Steve Downey in the things. Also, Ryan O'Reilly's a nice guy to look at. They have a lot of balanced scoring across all 4 lines, and they actually play pretty good defense as well, that tough, hard-nosed style that Patrick Roy likes. So coming out of the break, we're going to actually break down the rest of the Western Conference in the NHL. You're listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.
The Star Fantasy League show. Information is key to being a successful fantasy team owner, and the guys have all the updated info you need right now. Okay, fantasy sports fans.
There's a letter in your mailbox.
Time to dig into Donald's mailbag for your questions and comments.
Read the mail, read the mail, read the mail.
Jump in the game. Send your questions and comments to the Star Fantasy League's team by tweeting at SFL Show.
We are back here on the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team. I am your host, Matthew, as they like to call me, Footer. Just Footer, even though it is my last name. That's apparently the nickname that I picked up. But we are not doing Jonald's mailbag, but I finally did think of a name for Jonald's mailbag today.
What's that?
It's Footer's Satchel of Government-Delivered Documents. You like it?
It's a little long.
I thought it was pretty catchy.
A little wordy.
Oh, all right, fair enough. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter now since we aren't doing Jonald's mailbag today. We are just going to be talking a lot about NHL. We did a little baseball in the first segment, and we're going to obviously finish up with the fantasy portion of daily fantasy for football, because that's what we do here is daily, season, and weekly fantasy sports. So before the break, we were talking about the Central Division of the Western Conference in the NHL. We were talking about the Colorado Avalanche, the team that actually finished 1 point directly behind them. The St. Louis Blues are the team we're going to talk about now. They were led by a lot of balanced scoring, actually, on their team. Their leading scorer was Alexander Steen at 62 points. But they had a lot of guys in that 50 to 60 range.
Yeah, they lost in the Cup quarterfinals to Chicago. They were up 2-0, and Chicago came back, put them away 4-2. They're definitely a super deep team. A lot of people had them as the favorites to win the Cup last year before the season began. The kind of awful new playoff format forced them to play Chicago in round 1, which I wasn't too happy about when it happened.
Yeah.
As a Blackhawks fan, just because that could have basically have been maybe the conference finals in the West.
Definitely.
Those two teams. They have Backus, Steen, TJ Oshie, Tarasenko, Jaden Schwartz up front, Pietrangelo, Bouwmeester, Shattenkirk on the blue line. So they're a very deep team. I think they're definitely one of the top 4 teams in the NHL.
Yeah, looking at the roster, they got guys on here who were, key players on other teams, but now they're third, fourth line guys. Peter Mueller, Steve Ott. They did bring in Stasny, so that's going to help shore up their sentiment a lot. And then even a guy like Jordan Leopold, who was a top 4 guy in Buffalo and in Pittsburgh, he can be a guy who's possibly, if you need him, he could play as 5'6" defenseman there, and that's a pretty good 5'6" defenseman. So.
Yep, Vegas has them at 12-1 to win the Cup.
I do like them this year. I think they're going to be better than Colorado. I don't know if they're necessarily going to win the division, because the team that I think that is going to win the division we're going to actually talk about next, and that is your Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes.
I bet you've been waiting all week to talk about this. So I'm going to give you as much time as you want to talk about Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, really, you look at they lost to the Kings in the conference semifinals last year, great series. That was pretty much my Stanley Cup, and I think the Stanley Cup basically for the NHL is you saw that the West is, I think, the best conference by far in the NHL. Even in the NBA, usually the West is the best. I think the West has the top 4 teams in the NHL, really. If you look at Chicago, St. Louis, LA, and Anaheim, I think those are my top 4 teams. But, yeah, Chicago, they lost the heartbreaker in 7 games to the Kings. They have pretty much the whole team back. Still have Corey Crawford in net. He had a good postseason, at least the first 2 rounds. They signed Taves and Kane to matching 8-year, $84 million extensions.
I know. The Kane's signing really hurt being a Buffalo fan. I had that glimmer of hope that maybe if he became a free agent, he'd take a quote-unquote hometown discount to come back when we end up not sucking so much anymore, apparently.
Yeah, he really impressed me last year. He became a much better two-way player. Pretty much his whole career, he's just kind of focused on the offense. He's had a bad rep, obviously, off the ice. He kind of shored all that up last year. He had a great season. Could be a breakout season for his line mate, Brandon Saad, who also had a great postseason, 6 goals, 10 assists, playing with Shaw there. All the key guys are back, like I said. They picked up Brad Richards. Should be a great addition. They needed a second-line center. Got rid of Jesus. I think they're ready for another run at the Cup. Could be 3 in 6 years.
Yeah, I definitely see them taking down the division. Like I said, I feel like St. Louis is probably prime to be second. The team that I think might actually finish just in the playoffs again this year, but I don't know if they'll necessarily finish in the same slot. That's the Minnesota Wild. They finished last season with 98 points. They have a lot of guys on their team who are actually former Sabres, and Vanek, who they signed in the offseason. Obviously, Pominville was their leading goal scorer. They have Zach Parise there, Ryan Suter. They're a much better balanced team than I expected them to be, a couple years ago when they were trying to build this team up, I guess.
Yeah, the Vanek signing's huge. 3 years, $19.5 million. They didn't really make any other significant moves. They still have a solid offense. Zach Parise, Mikko Koivu, Granlund, you said Pominville. They got Charlie Coyle, Niederreiter. I think goaltending is probably their biggest question.
Yeah.
Is who's really going to be there? It's going to be Backstrom. It's going to be Brzgalov. They have Harding, who I think is now suspended. They should still be in the mix in the West if they can get some reliable goaltending.
Yeah, I didn't realize Backstrom's actually 34, 35 years old. I realized he was that old of a goaltender. And, obviously when you have a guy like Ryan Suter playing the defense, you're going to get points on the back end as well, which helps balance your scoring.
Yeah, he plays a ton of minutes. Other than that, nobody really super solid on defense. That could be a kind of a question mark as well.
No, definitely. One team that I'm really excited to watch this year, and it pains me to say this because of what happened in 1999, and that's the Dallas Stars. They have a lot of good young players. They have a couple of guys who could potentially be top scorers in the league this year. They finished a few points behind the top scorers, but I think they have the potential to do to reach that top echelon. That's Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn.
Yep. And they added Jason Spezza, Alice Hemsky. So they have one of the best forward groups in the league, I think. They also have Nishutskin there.
Yeah, Valery Nishutskin, yep.
Great young guy. I think their defense is probably the worst part of their team.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad. They didn't add anybody to help on defense either. They still have Kerry Lettinen in net, who wasn't that good last year. They picked up Anders Lindbach, who could see a lot more playing time as well.
Yeah, I could see them doing like a 50-30 split there. But they have a coach in Lindy Ruff who I think he knows how to get to players. He needed a fresh environment. I think he's starting to reach and get the max potential out of his guys down in Dallas.
Yeah, they should. They're going to be competing for that last playoff spot, I think, in the West.
Yeah,
again.
I think they'll be a good, exciting team to watch. Finishing out the Central Division, we have the Nashville Predators and the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to talk about the Predators first. They did miss out on the playoffs last year just by a few points. Again, they really didn't do much to hurt themselves in the offseason. They did add a bunch of guys, James Neal, Mike Ribeiro, Derek Roy, Ali Jokinen. They brought in a lot of guys to I think that could improve them from that 88 points.
Yeah, they still have Pekka Rinne in net. He's one of the best goalies in the league. And Shea Weber on the back end. Mm-hmm. He's going to be there pretty much as a Predator forever. They added a new head coach. They lost Barry Trotz. They have Peter Laviolette who comes in there. Mm-hmm. I still see them kind of missing the playoffs. The West is super tough. I think they'll be better, but they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. And last in the division, we have the Winnipeg Jets, or as I like to call the northern version of the Chicago Blackhawks, because they pretty much have all your old players: Dustin Byfuglien, Frolik, Ladd. Yeah. They have a lot of good pieces, but they just don't have enough even balanced lines to make themselves a team that can compete night in, night out.
I like them overall as a team. I think they have a pretty balanced team. I think they need a new goaltender there. Yeah. That's probably the one issue. I love Brandon Ladd. He's a captain there. The West
Andrew Ladd, right?
Andrew Ladd. Brandon Saad, Andrew Ladd.
They got that weird double letters in the name. I understand what you're talking about. So.
Yeah. The West is so stacked, though. They're going to be hard-pressed to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, we're going to jump over to the other division. That's the Pacific Division of the Western Conference. Winning the division last year and having the best record in the Western Conference was the Anaheim Ducks. First, I'd like to say that they added a great piece in Ryan Kessler, and I think that's huge for the Ducks this year.
Yeah, I picked them last year to win it all. They very well could this year. They've got a lot of talent. Obviously, you said they added Kessler. They've got great goaltending of Frederick Anderson and John Gibson. Mm-hmm. They also had a Danny Heatley. I'm not super high on him, but they got a lot of depth up front. Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry.
Yeah, we can't. We didn't even say Perry's name as the first guy, but the guy is just lights out when it comes to goal scoring, and Getzlaf is just an assist machine.
Yeah, they seem built for a cup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think they end up winning the division again. Finishing second in the division was the San Jose Sharks. I'm always a person who's very skeptical in the Sharks because they always have great regular season and they always fail to advance in the playoffs. I don't think they've reached past they haven't reached the conference finals in a few years. Yep. And they always seem to lose to the lower seed in the first round.
Yeah, they lost They lost to LA in 7 games. Mm-hmm. They lost a few guys: Boyle, Havlat, Brad Stewart. They didn't really add anybody. They still have a great core of young talent: Thomas Hertel, Logan Couture, Joe Pavelski, to go with Thornton and Marlowe, who they've kind of been trying to kick out of town. They asked them to drop their no trade clauses in the offseason. We'll see if they go. Brent Burns moving back to defense to help with the loss of Boyle. I don't know. I feel they'll probably be fighting for the 7th or 8th spot, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're still solid in net with Anthony Niemi, and it'd be interesting to see if Todd McLennan, the coach there, ends up salvaging his job for one more season. We're going to actually now talk about the Stanley Cup winning Los Angeles Kings. Los Angeles actually did finish 3rd in the division, but they pretty much have everybody back, and I see them competing in the West again.
Yeah, hockey's probably the toughest sport to repeat in. We saw Chicago trying to do that last year in an Olympic season, which I think hurt them. Jonathan Quick also played a lot of games last year for being in the Olympics. But, yeah, they re-signed Marian Gaborik, Matt Green. Top to bottom, they probably have the best team in hockey. Mm-hmm. They won 2 cups in 3 years. Still have Kopitar, Carter, Doty. Scoring was an issue for them. They had the 4th fewest goals, 5-on-5, and 27th on the power play. Mm-hmm. So look to improve on those numbers this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they got a good young core guys who are still there. They have the cup experience, and then they had the veteran guys in Justin Williams and Gaborik who can help out. And then they got solid defensemen in Doughty and Voynov on the back end as well. Yep. Coming in behind them, missing the playoffs, was the new name to Arizona Coyotes, no longer the Phoenix Coyotes.
Yes, that's interesting.
I was typing this down earlier today, and I was like, nope, it's not Phoenix. It's Arizona now. Arizona was actually led by a defenseman in scoring last year, Keith Yandel. Had a great year, 53 points. But it's always a bad year, I feel like, when your defenseman is a leading scorer for you.
Yeah, and he's not even their best defenseman. They've got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's one of the best young defenders in the league. And they added Sam Gagner. They had some big departures. Radim Vibrata went to Vancouver. Mike Ribeiro went to Nashville. They still have Mike Smith in net, who's one of the biggest goalies. He's always tough to score on. But they're not going to make the playoffs.
No, I don't think so. They got the lifer there in Shane Doan. I mean, the guy's been with the franchise from the days when it was in Winnipeg and then moving to Phoenix/Glendale area and then changing their name. Added a guy, Martin Erat. Yeah, it really doesn't impress me much. I completely agree that they're probably not going to make the playoffs. They got pretty lucky a few years ago with a great goaltending from Mike Smith, which put them through. So, all right, coming out of the break, we're going to finish up with the last three teams in the Western Conference, and you're listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.
Play fantasy sports for cash prizes. Join the top daily and weekly fantasy leagues in the country at starfantasyleagues.com. Now, back to the Star Fantasy League show with Jonathan, Zach, and Nick. Only on The Team.
Wrong. Yes, you are wrong again, Cage Guy. We are back on the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team. I am your host, Matthew Footer, again filling in this week for Jonathan Sprung. Just before the break, we were talking about the Western Conference, the Pacific Division specifically of the NHL. We didn't get to a couple teams, mainly teams located in our brothers up north in Canada. And we're going to start with first the Vancouver Canucks. Again, they were led by the Sedin twins last season, but very disappointing years for those guys.
Yeah, they scored less than any other team in the Western Conference last year. Expect them to have some slight improvement. They did trade Ryan Kessler to Anaheim. They got back Nick Bonino. They added Radim Virbata, who should help quite a bit. They signed Ryan Miller as a goalie.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big signing for them. He's got some stability now. He obviously there was talk that he's probably going to stay with St. Louis, but he ends up going to the West Coast, which I felt all along he's going to do. His wife is an actress in L.A., so I figured anywhere he could get on the West Coast side, he'd probably want to play. So
yeah, he should add one or two more wins to that team this year. They have a whole new front office. Trevor Linden now the president. Got a new GM. Torts is out there as head coach. They brought in Willie Desjardins from the AHL, but I'm not expecting too much improvement from them.
No, they had 83 points last year. I kind of expect them around that, maybe around 85, 86. Staying up in that northern area, we got the Calgary Flames. Looking at their roster, I'm kind of surprised that they weren't the worst team in the NHL last year. Led by Yuri Hrdler at 54 points. Not the best-looking roster last year, but they did make some improvements in the offseason.
Yeah, they added Jonas Hiller in goal, who's a big pickup. He's got something to prove now, kind of getting ousted there from Anaheim. Sean Monahan's probably their stud up there up front. Hudler was great last year. He should continue to improve. I don't know. They added a few guys, Mason Raymond, Devin Setaguchi, Derek Englund. But the Flames are probably going to finish down there at the bottom of the NHL this year again.
Yep. They did lose Mike Camilleri again for the second time, so I expect them to be down near the bottom, probably worse than the team that actually did finish worse last year in the Western Conference. That was the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of young scoring, but not much beyond that last season.
Yeah, I think they're going to make a pretty decent improvement this year. They have tons of young talent, like you said, Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They needed some size and veteran depth up front, so they made some decent signings. Benoit Pouliot, Teddy Purcell. They still have Justin Schultz, a young guy in the blue line. I expect them to make a decent improvement. They actually Vegas has them at 65-1 as well. And in goal, they have Ben Scrivens and Victor Foth, who should do a decent job back there.
Yeah, a lot of young talent and core there. They got other guys that we didn't even mention. Nail Yakupov, who was a number one pick a few years ago, been kind of disappointing to this point. And then they're one of their top picks this year, Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce his name. They did lose some veteran guys in Hemsky and Gagne, so it'll be interesting to see who kind of steps forward and becomes a leader on that team. I expect Hall to be that guy, actually.
Yeah, as long as their young talent continues to improve, they have some more consistent scoring, I think they should make a decent improvement.
Definitely. And that's going to end our hockey talk for the week and probably till the playoffs start, because we might not be back on until that time because we did talk hockey. So
yeah, it could be the last hockey talk you hear for a while.
Yes, definitely. But it is Friday. It is the weekend fantasy focus, as John likes to call it. We're going to talk about guys who are big plays this weekend, as well as guys that you want to pick up because it's Star Fantasy Leagues, and we're all about daily, weekly, and season-long fantasy here. We have different segments about guys who are going to be the top scorers, guys who you want to stack your team with, but we always start with our value picks. And what it is on Star Fantasy Leagues, each player has a different salary associated with them. The better the player, the higher the salary. But you can't fill your team full of Peyton Mannings every week. So you got to find guys who are, kind of a smaller value that you can plug and play to have the best winning lineup. So we're going to offer a couple guys that you could do that for each position, starting with the quarterback position. And Jason, we'll start with you. Who do you got for quarterbacks as value picks this week?
I have two guys. Mike Glennon for Tampa Bay. He's
Okay.
at the minimum $9,000.
Yep.
So is Blake Bortles.
Okay.
Pittsburgh has a lot of injuries on D. We saw what Glennon did against them last year. So Bortles going up against Pittsburgh could have some decent numbers, and Glennon going against the Saints. I think that should be a decently high-scoring game there. Obviously, he lost Mike Evans, but I think he'll have a decent day. He's in the minimum spot there. So
yeah, definitely. If you can get a quarterback who's productive for $9,000, that's about the minimum that they go for. I have another guy to go along with those two, in Brian Hoyer. I've been saying all week I really like Brian Hoyer this week against Tennessee. I think it's a good matchup. I think they'll run the ball on him, which will open up the pass using play action. So I really am high on Brian Hoyer this week. Jumping to the running back spot, I got a bunch of guys listed here, but I want to kind of hear who you have listed as your value plays because the salaries range so much for running backs, from starters to backups to guys who fill in, but you can get value at each spot.
yeah, I'm going to go with Jamal Charles and LaShawn McCoy.
Okay.
I'm putting both of them in a lineup. They're both around $12,000, which is probably the lowest you're going to see them this season. They're probably not the most super low value guys, but considering of what they've done and what their salaries could be this year, it could be a nice spot to save.
And that's exactly what I mean by value play. It's how you interpret it, but guys can stand for value because of what they've used to be represented for and now what they actually are on our site.
Right.
I went super cheap on a bunch of guys just to show a little difference. A few guys I have Darren Reeves in Carolina. It's been ruled out that I believe D'Angelo Williams Stewart's ruled out, and Williams is doubtful to play.
Yep.
So Reeves is coming in about $5,000. Lorenzo Taliaferro for Baltimore at $5,600. I like LeGarrette Blount for $6,700 because I feel like they're going to be so far ahead of Jacksonville. Although I've been saying this each week, and Jacksonville still managed to put some points on the board. I feel though that Bell and Blount are going to run all day on them. I really like Isaiah Crowell for $6,700 against Tennessee, and I like this to be the coming out weekend. I feel like a lot of people are saying this for Bishop Sankey at $7,800 as well.
Yep, Sankey Panky.
Sankey Panky. I used to call him Stanky Sankey. That was my name. So probably not original, but
yeah, as long as he's named the starter, he should have a really nice value.
As long as his footwork's improved, as they said, because poor footwork apparently leads to not getting the ball, which I don't understand. But I'm not an NFL head coach apparently. So, all right, jumping to the wide receiver slot. There's a few guys that I have. The salaries definitely range, but one guy that I really am high on this week is Brian Quick at $8,600.
Yeah, I love Quick. That should be a high-scoring game, I think, against Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. They'll probably be able to put up some points there. He's only $8,600. I have Keenan Allen at $10,000.
Okay.
San Diego should be airing it out once again this week. Vincent Jackson's only around slightly lower than $10,000. Reggie Wayne's around $10,000. I like him as well.
Yeah, those are a couple guys I could see being put in your lineup. I like Ruben Randall for $8,800. They're playing against a pretty terrible Atlanta defense. When they're on the road, they can't stop anything, essentially. And Randall's targets definitely went up last week against the Washington Redskins. One guy I do like is Denard Robinson, and he's actually a starting tailback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he's listed on our site as a wide receiver. But you get points for everything on there, and he's only listed for $3,000. So I feel like if you really want to take a guy like DeMarco Murray because you think he's going to have a huge week, this is a guy you could slide into a flex spot and might get some production out of him.
Definitely.
Rounding out the other pass catchers, we got the tight ends. Not as much value this week as I thought there would be for tight ends. I have a couple guys, but I'm interested to hear who you have.
I've got Owen Daniels coming around $5,600.
Okay.
And Kobe Fleener was the other guy.
Yeah, I do have Fleener at $5,800. I think they have a good matchup.
I also like Clay Harbor.
Okay.
He's around that same price. It doesn't look like Mercedes Lewis is going to be out playing again. So Harbor had 8 catches last week, and they're going up against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you figured Bortles will be slinging the ball all around. I mean, look what Tampa Bay did against. They weren't expected to do much in Glenn, I feel like Glenn's kind of a similar quarterback in a similar situation to what Bortles is in Jacksonville. Another guy I do like is he's not really much of a value anymore, but is on our side he's decent. Is Travis Kelce for 8,100. A lot of people don't like his matchup against San Francisco this week. I do like him at that price. I think you're still going to get probably 3 or 4 catches. You might get a red zone touchdown out of him. I think that's good enough for me.
Yeah, San Francisco's been tough against the tight end, so we'll see. I don't have him slotted into my lineup right now.
Fair enough. And that's where we differ, and that's okay on this show because usually there's a lot of yelling and screaming. We've been very agreeing this week on a lot of things. I feel like we got to show the listeners that we do have some differing views, unfortunately.
It's not all Nick and Zach yelling at each other.
Yes, that's true. It is a welcome change in the office, not hearing that. But finishing up, we always got to include the DSTs or the defenses, special teams. There's a few this week that I actually really like based on what their value is, but I want to hear who you have first.
I've got Seattle at 2,200
exactly.
Going up against Kirk Cousins, who we saw what happened last week. The Giants' D just kind of tore him up. And Pittsburgh's down there as well, 2,100 against Jacksonville. Even though I said Jacksonville might have a decent day, that's still a very good price for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, on Star Fantasy Leagues, the top defense is usually right around 5,000. That's Houston this week. So to get Seattle, who is probably the best defense in football. And
coming off a bye as well.
Coming off a bye. Granted, it's on the road. They don't play as well on the road, but they're playing against a Kirk Cousins team that was really rattled last week, and the Giants pretty much shut them down. I really do like the Seahawks this week. I think that's great value. It's probably the best value you're going to get for them, except when they played Denver earlier this year. I do like the Steelers as well. One other team I do like is the Giants. They are playing the Falcons at home. The Falcons can put up points, but being at home against them, the Falcons, I said, are a different team on the road. So I do like the Giants as well.
Don't mind them as well.
Definitely. All right. So these are the guys that were on the cheaper side, but we do want to get into our weekend winners. These are the guys at each position who we think are going to be the top scoring guys. You want to put them in your lineups if you have the money. Let's just jump right in. Who do you guys your weekend winner for quarterback?
I'm going Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers.
Okay.
I think we saw Rivers air it out last week. He's going to do it again this week. They don't have much running back help there. And Roethlisberger against the Jaguars, what else can you say? Yeah,
I think Roethlisberger has propelled himself into a top 10 quarterback at this point for fantasy football, especially this matchup this week makes him even some people I've heard him say as high as like 6 or 7 as the quarterback this week. When coming in the season, he was looked at as like a 15 to 17 range guy. I could see both of those guys being the weekend winner for quarterback. I have Drew Brees as my weekend winner. He's coming in at just under 20,000, so he's nowhere near the top QB price-wise. Taking on a Tampa Bay team that Roethlisberger lit up last week. I think he's got a lot of proof coming off that embarrassing game on Sunday Night Football against Dallas. So I like Drew Brees as my weekend winner for QB.
Yeah, Saints at home, they're probably going to light it up.
Definitely. For running backs, I got DeMarco Murray. He is the top running back, but Houston is one of the worst teams against the run. Buffalo didn't expose that last week, but the week before that, Jennings really exposed that. So Murray's been running like a beast. I don't see how you can go against him.
Yeah, my top 2 guys are going to be Giovanni Bernard going against the Patriots. They're 29th against running backs this year, and Rashad Jennings against the Falcons, and we saw that they couldn't really stop anything against Minnesota last week. So those are my top 2 guys.
Fair enough. Who do you got for pass catchers this week, specifically the wide receivers?
I like Antonio Brown, Kelvin Benjamin, Kelvin Johnson, and Brandon Marshall I can see as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have Antonio Brown as well. He is the top rated wide receiver on Star Fantasy Leagues for about 20,000. But like we said, sometimes you got to put these guys into your lineups just to get some scoring. And the guy's been catching every ball thrown to him for Ben Roethlisberger. Yep. All right, coming out of the break for our last segment, we're going to finish up with the weekend winners. And we're going to play a fun game of one-on-one Would You Rather. You're listening to Star Fantasy League Show on 105.5 The Team.
You're listening to the Star Fantasy League Show. Contact the StarFantasyLeagues.com guys via Twitter at SFL Show.
We are back for our final segment here on the Star Fantasy League Show on 105.5 The Team. I am your host, Matthew Footer, again filling in for Jonathan Sprung this week. Again, we are talking the weekend fantasy focus because it is Friday, and that means you need to start getting ready to set your brackets for the weekend.
Football is back.
It is back. And you know what's even more great about this weekend is we have the most money guaranteed on Star Fantasy Leagues this weekend up to this point.
16,000 plus.
16,000 plus. That's a lot of money.
It is.
That is a lot of money. And we have $500 free roll that anyone can enter at any time. And we also have some free money that we're giving you as soon as you sign up. If you use the promo code FREE14, FREE14, you get a 100% matched up to $2,000, and you also get an $11 credit into your account.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's free money tossed right your
on
way.
your first deposit. Yep.
So definitely play at starfantasyleagues.com for this weekend. All right, let's finish up with the weekend winners. We're right on the tight ends. Who do you guys your weekend winner at tight end?
You got to love Jimmy Graham at home and Julius Thomas going against the Cardinals.
Yep, I got Julius Thomas. Cardinals are the worst team against the opposing tight end. $15,000. He's not the tight end, but I got Julius Thomas as the top.
Yeah, both guys are going to cost you.
Yeah,
but they should have decent games.
Exactly. And we're going to do the last one. That's our defense, and then I got Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going back to Seattle. Yeah.
For that price, no doubt.
Can't beat it.
All right, we're going to play a quick abbreviated game of Would You Rather. If you listen on Friday, we usually have Nick and Zach kind of going at it, or if one of us is filling in, we're kind of going at it, which guys we'd rather have. These guys are similar in price, may play the same position, might be a flex option here, but we're going to kind of give you our best opinion on these guys. So first off, would you rather have Ben Roethlisberger versus Jacksonville for $16,487 or Andy Dalton for $16,472 against New England?
I think my choice is going to be Big Ben.
Yeah.
I said he could be the top guy this week. So
okay, I gotta tend to agree with this one here. Yeah. I did make the question, so it'll be tough for me to kind of give an unbiased opinion, but I think I said Roethlisberger's a top 10 guy this week. I think Dalton falls just outside that top 10, playing a terrible New England defense that was exposed on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, we'll see if they bounce back Sunday night. Should be interesting.
Definitely. Another QB matchup. Peyton Manning versus Arizona for $21,760, or Matt Ryan versus New York Giants for $21,783, so a $23 difference.
This is a tough one. I think I'm going Matt Ryan.
Okay.
Actually, I know Peyton. He's got a tough matchup. That's going to be a good game to watch. Two undefeated teams there in Denver. I think the Falcons have been passing a lot more, so I'm going Ryan.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one finally. Right. I'm going to go with Peyton Manning. Matt Ryan's just not the best QB on the road fantasy-wise. He'll still get you some yards, but he tends to turn the ball over a lot. Yeah. And the Giants' defense looked pretty good last week, so I got to go with Peyton Manning on this one.
Fair enough. Close call.
All right, jumping to the running backs. This is probably my favorite one. We got LaShawn McCoy for $12,321, or C.J. Spiller versus Detroit. McCoy's playing St. Louis. Spiller versus Detroit for $12,313, so an $8 difference.
I like McCoy. I think this could be his breakout game finally. Spiller's great on turf, but I got to give this one to McCoy.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go with Spiller on this one. I feel like he's finally due for a breakout game. Having Kyle Orton back there, I feel like Orton's going to check down a lot, so I feel like he's going to end up getting a lot of passes tossed to him.
All right.
We're gonna kind of jump into the stack of the week. Like I said, that was an abbreviated version of Would You Rather. But who do you got for your stack of the week?
I like Pittsburgh or Chicago.
Okay. And if you don't know stack of the week, it means we're putting in quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, maybe even the defenses. So who do you got for Pittsburgh?
Their whole offense, really. Bell, Big Ben, Antonio Brown. Chicago, I got Cutler, Forte, either wide receiver. So I think those could be two big ones for you.
That's kind of funny because if you look at my sheet, and you are looking at it right now, I do have Pittsburgh as well. I got both running backs. I got Wheaton in there. I got Heath Miller coming off a 10-catch performance. So I definitely like them as my stack of the week.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
NFL Sunday's here.
Thank you. Yeah, it is here. All right, thank you for listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.